On May 1st, 1997, underwater microphones picked up a sound so loud it was heard across an entire ocean, and it took scientists 15 years to figure out what made it. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration runs a network of underwater listening stations. They're not hunting for submarines or messages from the deep. They're monitoring earthquakes, volcanic activity, and the movement of water itself. It's meticulous, unglamorous work. But on that spring morning in 1997, something came through the speakers that stopped everyone in the room. The sound lasted about 90 seconds. It was picked up by multiple hydrophones spread across the Pacific, thousands of miles apart. For reference, when a blue whale calls, it travels maybe 500 miles. This sound traveled at least 5000. The frequency was so low, below 20 hertz, that human ears couldn't even hear it. Only machines could. Scientists named it the bloop, not because they were being casual, it was the sound's actual acoustic signature. And within weeks, the internet did what the internet does. Conspiracy forums erupted. Could it be a living creature, something so massive it dwarfed every animal on Earth? Could it be a secret military weapon, a dimensional rift? The wilder the theory, the more it spread. Here's what most people don't realize. NOAA didn't immediately announce the bloop. It sat in their archives, classified as unidentified, for years. What would you do if you heard something you couldn't explain? Would you tell the world, or would you wait until you had answers? Let's examine what we actually know. Exhibit 1, the bloop had a distinct frequency pattern. It wasn't random noise, it had structure. It had rhythm. That alone suggested something or someone was producing it deliberately. Exhibit 2, the sound's intensity suggested a source of extraordinary size. Scientists ran calculations. If it was a living creature, it would need to be larger than a blue whale. Larger, in fact, than any animal ever documented. The math was airtight. The mystery deepened. But here's where the story turns. Exhibit 3. In 2005, 8 years after the bloop, researchers published findings from a separate project. They'd been studying ice sounds, specifically the acoustic signature of massive icebergs calving from Antarctic glaciers. When a chunk of ice the size of a mountain breaks away and slides into the ocean, it doesn't just splash, it sings. The acoustic pattern matched, not perfectly. Science rarely offers perfect matches, but close enough that researchers could model it. A massive iceberg collapsing under its own weight could produce exactly the sound the bloop produced. The frequency, the duration, the intensity, it all fit. But in this matters, not everyone agreed. Some researchers argued the timing didn't line up perfectly with known glacier activity. Others said the location seemed off. Science thrives on disagreement. It's how we narrow the truth. But the Iceberg Hypothesis became the dominant explanation. Here's the thing nobody talks about. The bloop wasn't the only mysterious sound. Before and after, NOAA recorded dozens of others. Sounds they eventually identified as whale calls, ship propellers, underwater landslides. But the bloop was different. It was bigger, louder, stranger. What's remarkable is how the story shifted. In 1997, it was a genuine mystery. Scientists didn't know. The public speculated wildly. And that's not conspiracy, that's how science works. Observation first, explanation later, sometimes much later. But the iceberg explanation, while plausible, wasn't definitive. And that's where most accounts end. They don't tell you that. They present the iceberg theory as solved fact, mystery closed, case shut, except it isn't, not entirely. In 2023, researchers revisited the bloop using modern acoustic analysis. New technology, new data. They confirmed the iceberg hypothesis was likely being the operative word. But they also noted that without a time-stamped iceberg collapse directly recorded in the same location, complete certainty remains impossible. So here's what we've established. The bloop was real, it was recorded, it was loud. Scientists investigated. They offered the most probable explanation, a calving glacier. But they didn't offer proof beyond reasonable doubt. They offered a working theory, and that's the distinction nobody makes. The bloop became a legend because it lived in that gap between mystery and explanation. It's the kind of story that reminds us how much of our ocean remains unmapped, unheard, unknown. We've sent more people to the moon than we've sent to the deepest parts of the Pacific. That's not a conspiracy, that's just reality. The ocean is vast, we listen, we record. Sometimes we hear things we don't immediately understand. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the explanation arrives years later quietly in a research paper nobody reads. The bloop didn't prove there's a giant undiscovered creature in the deep. It proved something subtler, that mystery and science aren't enemies, they're partners. One asks the question, the other seeks the answer. And sometimes the answer takes 15 years, sometimes it's still not completely certain. Subscribe for the next unexplained phenomenon, where we separate what science has actually solved from what's still hiding in plain sight.